Thank you, everyone, for your patience, and I will go ahead and thank you. I will go ahead and call the meeting to order. Jenny, would you take the roll?
Yes. Mrs. Bohan?
Here.
Dr. Schulman?
Here.
Mrs. Steiner?
Here.
Ms. Gorst?
Present.
Ms. Tremelli?
Here.
Mr. Yekitis?
Present.
And let the record show that Mr. Conrady is absent.
Okay. And we will proceed to the Pledge of Allegiance with Jeff Dalmau lead us. I see you way back there.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We will move on to approval of the minutes for the regular board meeting held on November 8th of 2023. What is the board's desire regarding those?
Move to approve. Second.
Second. Any questions or comments regarding those? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and take the vote.
Dr. Schulman?
Yes.
Mrs. Steiner?
Yes.
Ms. Gorst?
Yes.
Ms. Tremelli?
Yes.
Mr. Yekitis?
I recuse myself, I was absent.
And Mrs. Bohan?
Yes. And next is approval of accounts for the month of November. And what is your desire regarding that?
Move to approve. Second.
Any questions regarding the accounts attached to board docs? Okay, seeing none, we will go ahead and take.
All right, Mrs. Steiner?
Yes.
Ms. Gorst?
Yes.
Ms. Tremelli?
Yes.
Mr. Yekitis?
Yes.
Mrs. Bohan?
Yes.
Dr. Schulman?
Yes.
Any district recognitions? Okay. Then we will move forward to communications from the public.
This is one other one.
Thank you. Okay. So I just have the two, correct? Okay. The board values all comments and will respectfully consider this input in decision-making. However, it is not the intent of the public comment portion of the meeting for the board to enter into a debate or a discussion of an issue. Comments in regard to personnel matters are not allowed. Information presented cannot result in immediate action due to the open meetings law, but could precipitate a future agenda item. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes, and our board secretary, Jenny Head, will keep track of those and give a 2.5-minute ding, and that means there's another 30 seconds left. I will start with Kathleen Mahoney. Thank you, Kathleen. Welcome.
Hi. Hi, I'm Kathleen Mahoney, speaking on behalf of Marshfield Teachers Association. And I'll just start with the winter and holiday season is a busy but joyous time of year. And one of the things that adds more joy to this time of year are the many extra and above and beyond efforts of our music department. There's a madrigal dinner and extra community performances. There's 5th grade beginning their group rehearsals. And of course, there's all those extra delightful holiday concerts. So if you or your children have participated in a music program, especially a Marshfield music program, you know its transformative power. We know music participation does connect to growth in academics, but quite frankly, all the benefits can't be captured in data points or on school report cards. Music helps students express themselves, it helps them calm. Music has just a unique power to relate to people in different ways. And similar to athletics, music can challenge our students to push themselves as individuals, but also connect and collaborate with the team. So when we're enjoying the extra displays of holiday joy and cheer in our music concerts, you'll be amazed at how flawless and effortless they look. But it comes with tons of effort. It includes hours of practice, coordinating, setting up the rehearsal space and the concert space, communication with parents, students, staff, just to get that all done, and so much more. the community just gets the benefit from enjoying the final product and performance. So this month, in whatever way music is adding joy to the season, take time to appreciate it and thank the individuals creating that joy. Go to one of the many holiday concerts available this season. Marshfield's music teachers and students have certainly dedicated extra time and effort to bring us an experience of joy and connection. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next one is Nicole Johnson.
Hello. I appreciate the recent survey and the school district created. Although I wish there was a place to elaborate, or that the valedictorian salutatorian was one question and recognizing the top 5% was the second one, I appreciate the effort. I took some time to examine the results of the survey sent out to students, staff, parents, and the community. I wanted to bring to attention a few things I noticed. Regarding returning to valedictorian salutatorian across the board, the majority was neutral. Staff really didn't value its importance, public a little more, and students topped out at 34%. What I really found telling about the students' result was that the seniors, the ones in the thick of it, valued naming these representatives the least at 27.7%. Regarding the importance of the 8 factors, I saw that in a different order, the top 5 and the bottom 3 priorities were the same across the staff and the public. I'm curious if students were asked this question. I think it would have been interesting to hear their thoughts. You see, unlike a certain very loud and argumentative local Facebook group that doesn't understand why you were asking the students their opinions, I'm thankful that 879 of them got a chance to reply. This is their education and graduation we're talking about. Regarding the recognition of the top 5%, I think it may have outlived its helpful lifetime. I'm glad that the school acknowledges these high achievers, but I don't think 5% is a healthy goal. It's always moving. Class sizes fluctuate, competition differs between graduating classes, and there's an overall feeling of anxiety wondering how you are doing compared to others. Of course, let's say out of a class of 300, there really are only 20 students that are competing for this. There's no reason to try harder if you're not in the top 20. If you are number 16 at the end of your junior year, not only are you hoping you can keep up the pace, but somewhere inside, at some point in time, you're hoping that someone else fails. I know a big concern for me and many others is mental health. If you're an incredibly smart, overachieving kid, but constantly worried you're not going to hit this moving target, it creates a lot of anxiety. My solution is not to trash the system. My solution is to look at what the GPA maybe has been for the last 5 years or since we've been using this weighted program, and create an average number that all students can aim for. That way they're competing against themselves. I'm not sure that many people in the community realize that this 5% probably comes down to hundredths of a decimal. These are all students with GPAs well over 4.0. I think changing this recognition to be all students who receive whatever this number is, say 4.0, would actually encourage more students to strive harder while reducing the anxiety and competition of the top 20 students.
Thank you. Then we will move on to the superintendent.
There's correspondence folder underneath your items, Francis.
I'm sorry.
There's a correspondence folder underneath your items. No, underneath your stack of papers.
Got it, with the red.
The red folder.
We can get that passing around.
And I will start this way.
Okay, good.
Sorry.
All right, and then moving on to the superintendent's report, I want to just briefly remind board members to double check your mics and make sure it shows as green that you're turned on, just to make sure the audio is working correctly for people to be able to hear. Very briefly, just a couple of items that I wanted to know. It's hard to believe that we're coming up on winter break already as we're nearing the midpoint of the year. I wanted to remind our families, parents, students, and listeners and attendees at the meeting this evening that Winter break for our students and staff runs from December 23rd through January 2nd. And along with that, our district office here at 1010 East 4th Street will be closed throughout the full last week of December. However, we'll reopen on January 2nd. That's Tuesday, January 2nd. We will be open, but again, I want to remind that that's still vacation for our teaching staff, support staff, and our students. So district offices and district buildings throughout the district will be closed during that last full week of December. District office open on January 2nd, kids return on January 3rd. So that's a rundown on upcoming winter break. And then I lastly wanted to be sure to note that from all of us here in the school district of Marshfield, we wish everyone a safe and happy holiday season. Thank you.
And on behalf of the board, we are so appreciative of the support of the community for our kids and the educational community at large. And I bring that up because we are moving on to the gifts. So, we go back to the agenda. We have acceptance of gifts, and the list includes painting of railing sections valued at $783.20 from H&S Manufacturing. $500 from the family of Judy Luce for supplies, books for Washington School Library. $1,000 from Dakota and Derek Fries for the boys basketball program. Cheese from Nasonville Dairy valued at $500 for FCCLA. $250 from the Grell family for Project Search program. And then at Lincoln Elementary, we have two gifts. One of snacks valued at $200 from Cornerstone Church and $500 from Cheryl Inc. For the girls' basketball program, we have two donations. Trip to the Wisconsin girls' basketball game valued at $2,500 from the Hyman family and Nasonville Dairy. And team apparel valued at $5,259.97 from Wheeler's GMC. What is your desire regarding these gifts?
Accept with great thanks, and once again, very appreciative of a community that supports education and supports our Marshfield schools.
And to be-
Second.
In a second, thank you. Then we will go ahead and take the vote on that.
Ms. Gorst?
Yes.
Ms. Tremelli?
Yes.
Mr. Yekitis?
Yes.
Mrs. Bohan?
Yes.
Dr. Schulman?
Yes.
Mrs. Steiner?
Yes.
Okay, then we will move on to employee relations. Did not meet this month, but policy legislation. Mrs. Steiner.
So we, oops, pardon me. Yes, we met, and we did not meet. I hate to say this, we did not meet. But we do have an agenda, an action item that is sort of a holdover from our meeting in which is the whistleblower policy. We discussed it last time, but it wasn't actually on the agenda for our approval. We didn't have any concerns about it last time, so I just wanted to put it forth from the committee as an action item tonight, just so we have that on the record.
Yeah, this particular policy did go through committee, both first and second reading. You actually made reference to it in the last meeting.
I did,
Sam.
yes, I did,
But
actually,
when
yes.
we were
yeah.
reviewing the minutes from the board meeting, we did notice that it was not listed on the actual agenda. And that was the case where the board voted on like A through double H, I
We
think,
had-
minus one
It
item.
was not a record breaker, but a lot, yeah.
So this policy was not listed, so it was technically not acted upon at the last board meeting. So to formalize the approval of this policy, we really do need to have it appropriately in the board record as having been voted on by the board.
So we have a motion on behalf of committee to approve policy 3211 regarding whistleblower protection. Okay. And any comments or questions? It was in board docs for us to read ahead of time. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and take the vote.
Okay, Ms. Tremelli,
Yes.
Mr. Yekitis,
Yes.
Mrs. Bohan,
Yes.
Dr. Schulman,
Yes.
Mrs. Steiner,
Yes.
Ms. Gorst.
Yes.
By the way, I don't know if we noted, but the Employee Relations Committee did not meet this past month.
Yeah, Francis did mention.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's it. We will move on then. Is there anything else, Mrs. Steiner?
No.
Okay. We will move on to curriculum and instruction, and I will pass the gavel to Dr. Schulman.
As treasurer, your next officer up for presiding over the meeting, yes.
Okay, so curriculum and instruction did meet on November 29th, and we first looked at the Human Growth and Development Advisory Committee update, and that was attached in board docs for you to read ahead of time. The committee met 3 times since January of this year. At the most recent meeting in October, they looked at the Youth Risk Behavior Survey data, and that was from 2021 was the last set of data, and that was shared with the group. They also did what is called a SWOT analysis, that is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And that looked at those components of the current health and human growth and development curriculum as a group. They looked at all that. Then we did look at the public recognition of class rank, and surveys were conducted with students, staff, and families over the past few weeks. The results from those surveys were presented and discussed, and the surveys as a whole included other topics in the surveys so that those could be used by building leadership to determine short and long-term planning at Marshfield High School. And included in the surveys was the question about public acknowledgement and the importance of Marshfield High School returning to the practice of formally recognizing valedictorian and salutatorian. Those results were reviewed and discussed, and they are attached. The results for those questions are attached in board docs so that you had an opportunity to look at those. And then we looked at Act 20, early literacy legislation. It was signed into law July 19th of this year, and it is defined as overhauling how teachers teach and students learn reading in grades K through 3 in the public schools. The new law takes effect for the next school year, 2024 to 2025. An overview of the requirements and timelines were reviewed and discussed, and we will get more updates as they become available, because one critical piece is that they will be looking at what curriculum qualify for teaching our English language reading classes. So we don't have that list yet, do we, Kim?
I do have an update that our actual resource is good. We
Okay.
do not move to a resource, it's the assessment that will be mandated for
Okay.
us to change if they don't.
That was an important piece we were waiting to hear. So for those of you who could not hear Kim, our resources are good to go forward. We, in our review, we were already complying with most of the law. In fact, the science of reading topic had already been on our professional development class list, and many of our teachers had already participated in that, so that will be ongoing also. But we were in pretty good shape, as we have fortunately been on many topics that have come into law. Often we've kind of had a head start with our own curriculum being in compliance with what they're looking at. So that's good news. Thank you, Kim. And that's pretty much it on.
Can I just offer something along those lines? I just was talking to Kim about this, that there's a new documentary that's going to be coming out It's called The Right to Read, and it gives a really wonderful sort of historical context for how we got to where we got. And I'd like to say that I am proud to say it seems to me that Marshfield as a district never got to the extremes that have happened in other districts in terms of changing the way we teach and keeping phonics as a part of the way that we teach reading, which is very important to do. But anyway, we're hopefully going to be able to put this together as a public viewing at Rogers Cinema, possibly Kim's, I was mentioning the science of reading, and then this is the Right to Read, or would be really wonderful companion films for people to see, to really get an understanding of the context of this in the past 30 years as to what was happening with the way we're teaching reading, and how it aligns with developmental patterns that we see in early language acquisition in birth to 3, that really we're moving to keeping that pattern of learning similar, because it seems to be what naturally happens.
Yes.
So anyway.
And even though we're in good shape with the law and compliance, I also appreciate the staff that always try to do better. So Kim puts together these professional development things so that teachers have more tools to work with in their toolbox, and they're constantly looking at how to improve. So that's an ongoing process always. Any questions?
Maybe I missed something, but doesn't Act 20 address K through 12, not just K through 3?
It's a K through 3 legislation. All the statute applies to K through 3.
Okay.
We've included 4K, and we plan to include 4 through 6 as well, but our emphasis is K through 3 and meeting those statutory regulations in a short timeline.
Any other questions? Then we will move on to facilities, safety, and transportation. And so,
Sam is going to.
I'll take
Oh.
over,
There we go.
just because I'm the second in line to do this. So
thank you.
what to say, we did meet on November 29th. And I wanted to say that our new business was very interesting. I found it very educational. I think Tara did too. We learned a lot about roofs, and we were able to take in a lot of information that from the Garland Company, which we had hired to do a roof analysis of the buildings. And the purpose was to provide the district with a comprehensive report that outlines where things are, like where a hole is from the top, as opposed to trying to figure it out when the leak comes through. So it's going to give us, they're going to give us a map of our roofs. So with specific points where they know that there is a weakness, so that it might streamline repairs, and we might be taking this information into our larger plan that we're working with Nexus to get a development plan for what might need to happen. So that was very informative. And then secondly, we talked about capital maintenance projects, and we were given a prioritized list of projects that are in progress and high priority, and then sort of in the future projects. Because there is $325,000 that's been budgeted for those improvements in this current year. We've used some of it, but not too much. I just wanted to know if you could just give us the numbers, because that was nice to hear.
Yeah, so there was actually just an update recently to this. Out of that 325, there's 264,000 remaining
Okay.
to be spent.
Yeah, so that's pretty good. We got a decent amount to take care of a lot of these items. So with old business, we had an update on the facility improvement plan. So Dr. Christensen met with our building faculty ahead of the staff survey. That we're now in line. We have a timeline with Nexus as to what we're doing to get information together, and we're going to have a staff. It has started. Has the staff survey been completed?
Yeah, so the staff survey was put out earlier last week, and it runs through the end of this week. It closes after school on Friday. So as of this afternoon, we had 165 responses. So that's pretty good, going out to approximately 470 staff members. So Still time, I put a reminder out to staff at the end of the school day today that there are 2 additional days to pick up some more responses, but Nexus is pleased with that turnout, so we're looking forward to reviewing that data and incorporating that into their reports. I can see in the minutes that there was also a reference to walkthroughs beginning, so we have had a number of meetings with Nexus in the last week and a half. They have indeed initiated those walkthroughs. They've started their building visits and meetings with building principals, and our district team has had collaborative meetings with their civil engineers and their mechanical engineers as part of the review process with our facilities as well, so things are moving along very well.
That's nice. That's nice to hear. And then secondly, with old business, just an update about the pickleball project. This is over by the tennis courts. There has been a little bit more construction done. The restroom building has been constructed with plumbing and electrical work completed. The remainder of the restroom work, including the exterior water fountain, will be completed in the spring of 2024, and a 3-foot chain link fence and a gate has been installed around the courts. So the project will resume in the spring. And that's about it.
What a wonderful reminder again of community support,
Yes.
because that was community.
That is a
funded,
community
that's
support,
not
yes,
school
yes.
district funded. Yes.
And that will be half of the pickleball courts in the public outside, because there's another group that's doing it as well. So all of these pickleball players have plenty of access for a quarter of the year.
Any questions for facilities?
And I'm sure when it opens on those pickleball courts that we will have a school board tournament, correct?
I think Mark was the
Participate.
one who wanted to be the player to challenge, I think.
Sure.
Yeah.
Mark's not here, so I'm
I
going
know.
to make him a chairman of
Let's
that
make him-
tournament.
yeah.
Sounds good. Okay, we will move on to finance, Dr. Schultz.
Finance met tonight and we covered quite a lot of ground. That you have links to the presentation of the fiscal year 2023 financial audit that we had a nice presentation about. So there are a summary of the financial statements in board docs. Basically, we did well again this year. No significant findings or adjustments were needed. There are a couple of items that gets mentioned year over year. Basically, preparation of financial statements, because we don't have our own CPA in the district. District management has to outsource it, and this just kind of falls under corrective action plan, but it's not really a corrective action plan, it's just the way things are. There were some audit adjustments that are ongoing as far as updating and improving financial reporting, internal controls. They're going to be reconciling accounts on a more regular basis to make sure that we stay on top of things better throughout the year, but again, no significant aberrancies were noted in that. And the only thing that was relatively new this year was there were a couple of when we're evaluating income eligibility for the child nutrition cluster, a couple of families didn't have all the income eligibility, didn't meet criteria exactly. Only 2 out of all of our families. And so there's been some looking at how to improve the evaluation of income eligibility, so we can be more accurate with that next year. But there, again, you can look at the updates online. No concerns from Hawkins Ash CPAs. We reviewed the monthly bills, there were no concerns. We had a short presentation about the probability of getting a video board in the field house. There's no action tonight, but fundraising and donations are underway. There's some interested parties in getting a video board added to the field house, similar to outside on the football field facility, not quite that big probably. And then finally, for board action, the financial advisor services, there's a recommendation to change to a different team. There were 3 teams that were interviewed after coming forward with their offers. And there were 2 that did very well through the interview process, and 1 edged out the other. The recommendation from those doing the interviews was to go with PMA Financial Network. They've already been managing our Fund 46 investments for us since 2015. There is a ton of experience. They work with many other school districts in our area and across Wisconsin. The pricing between the 3 was all very similar. There's certainly going to be no increase in cost switching to the new financial advisor services. And the memo to the board, if you haven't seen it in board docs, this is what we're going to basically review and vote on tonight. That since June 2015, the district has utilized the services of Ehlers and Associates for financial advising. On October 13th, 2023, the district issued a request for proposals to 5 qualified municipal financial advisory firms and received 4 proposals in response. After reviewing the proposals, a decision was made to interview the top 3 firms: Ehlers and Associates, R.W. Baird and Company, and PMA Financial. Administration is recommending the board take action to approve PMA Financial as the district's partner for financial advisory services. Questions were answered at the board, at the committee meeting, and on behalf of the committee, I am bringing forward the motion that the school board approve PMA Financial as the district's partner for financial advisory services effective immediately.
Okay, so we have a motion on behalf of committee to approve PMA Financial Network as our new financial, to provide our new financial advisory services effective immediately.
Correct.
Okay. Any questions?
I have a question, just, so you mentioned, Karen, that it was not that there was that much of a difference in terms of cost, but I guess I'm wondering, what inspired the RFP?
Gail, could you possibly hand the extra mic we've got, so maybe if Sam's going to
Sure,
speak,
Sam.
to hand to Sam, so that.
Oh, Sam, okay.
But turn it on.
Well, that's a Sam, isn't it?
Sorry, Sam, right,
We have
I would not be able to.
Sam, I am.
Sorry.
Push the button so
And make sure it's on green.
All right, can you all hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, so since we've been with Ehlers since 2015, we have a board policy that actually states that we need to go out every 3 years to bid for certain services, big contract type stuff, banking, auditing, financial services, transportation, items like that. And it had been since 2015 since we had done an RFP for financial services. So we figured it was just time, due process. It's been 8 years. That's kind of what inspired the push to get an RFP put out.
Great, thank you.
I think to just add a little bit more to your question, Sam, the proposals that were submitted, as far as the scenarios that we presented, we asked them to present on in their response to questions that we gave them about solutions. We just felt like the 2 that you're referring to in PMA a little bit better and more so than the other party provided better and more creative solutions to the sorts of scenarios that we presented during the actual interview process.
So there's just, different scenarios that we now face, maybe if we're different from the previous years. Okay, great. Thank you.
Any other questions before we take the vote?
Just a comment, it's my understanding that they also came in with a better pricing format as well as actually they manage some of our investments, so it's kind of keeping everything all together in one place.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. So with our previous financial advisor, if this goes through, there is one thing that we have for continuing disclosure that needs to be filed for the federal government that they charge us $3,000 annually for, where our PMA came in at that number is $1,500 annually. And that is the only fee associated with it unless there is a borrowing that this company assists on, which they will get a percentage, a very small decimal percentage point, something of that offering, depending on the amount.
Sam, and I think you mentioned also in our previous meeting, pardon me, that this company has an individual who will be our rep, for a better term, that has an awful lot of experience in this area.
Yep, so I can speak to that a little bit. So the main contact will be Eric Cass. He has experience with the Madison Metro School District as well as the Elmbrook School District before he went to PMA. He had a pretty significant role at the Madison Metro School District in their business office. So he's seen big districts, he's seen small districts, and he's worked with a ton of districts since he's gotten with PMA as their main contact.
And a number of those districts are right here in the central Wisconsin area that between Sam and myself, we called to do background checks and get an idea on the experience that others are receiving. I'm talking districts like Wausau, Auburndale, DC Everest, Nakusa, Pittsville, to name a few. And I know a number of those that we talked to are working directly with Eric and all spoke very highly of their contact with him. So he's definitely familiar in doing with the area and doing work with other districts right here in our backyard.
Great. That sounds good.
Anything else? Okay, then we will go ahead and take a vote on the motion.
Okay, Mr. Yekitis,
Yes.
Mrs. Bohan,
Yes?
Dr. Schulman,
Yes.
Mrs. Steiner,
Yes.
Ms. Gorst,
Yes.
Ms. Tremelli.
Yes.
We will move on to new business, and the first item on there is retirements, approval of retirements. Mr. Yekitis.
Okay, this does not come out of the Personnel Committee. It comes out of information given to us by the central office. Approval of retirements. This is a motion on behalf of me as an individual board member with information from central office administrators that we approve the retirement of Kevin Frederick, teacher of intellectual disabilities and homebound at the high school, and also the approval of Gina Krzyzanowski, a teacher of cross-categorical students at Madison School. That will need a second.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Then, any questions or comments? We'll go ahead and take the roll.
Mrs. Bohan,
Yes?
Dr. Schulman,
Yes.
Mrs. Steiner,
Yes.
Ms. Gorst,
Yes.
Ms. Tremelli.
Yes.
Mr. Yekitis.
And again, as an individual board member, we,
Dale, did you?
oh, yes, I'm sorry, I thought because I was
On to the next
On a
one.
roll.
too obvious, I guess. Anyway, next item is approval of resignations. We only have one. Julie Hahn, a food service assistant cook at the high school, so I make that motion as an individual board member to approve that resignation.
And do you
Second.
A second? Dr. Schulman. Okay. Any questions regarding the resignation? Okay, we will go ahead and take a roll on that.
Dr. Schulman,
Yes.
Mrs. Steiner,
Yes.
Ms. Gorst,
Yes.
Ms. Tremelli,
Yes.
Mr. Yekitis,
Yes.
Mrs. Bohan.
Yes. Okay, we'll move on to approval of new personnel.
New personnel, as individual board member, I make the motion that we approve the employment of the two people listed. Christian Novak, food services assistant cook / teacher assistant, bus aide, both at the high school and then with Cobeson, our bus service. And also Adam Vansel, a teacher assistant as an AM, a morning bus aide for the Cobeson Company.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. And any questions, comments? Then we'll go ahead and take the roll.
Mrs. Steiner,
Yes.
Ms. Gorst,
Yes.
Ms. Tremelli,
Yes.
Mr. Yekitis.
Yes.
Mrs. Bohan,
Yes,
Dr. Schulman.
Yes.
thank you. Then we will move on to approval of the memorandum of understanding with Empower Mental Health Clinic, which was in board docs for you to look at. Do we have a motion to approve that?
Move to approve.
And second.
Okay. Any questions or comments regarding that? And this provides access to space for them to meet with students they are already meeting with.
This one is pretty strictly remote though, right?
Yes.
Virtual, but the student has space carved out for those meetings.
And I just thought we just had a presentation about the consortium that we have developed with a private therapists to serve our students, and this is yet another onboarding of a community-based service provider that is going to be helping out our kids. And it's just really impressive what Joanne Greenlee and Tracy Kells have done to pull this together to really give our kids faster service and school-based service and or remote service when they need it. And I just want to offer some verbal applause for that. I think our schools are much better because we have that available. So,
I agree that, just to clarify, this particular provider is not a member of the consortium.
well, that's right.
But we don't have exclusive contracts with anybody. In
Yeah.
other words, there is allowance for students to meet with whoever the provider is, and that's why we are adding this one in the memorandum of understanding.
Yeah, per board policy, we need to have a memorandum of understanding in place for the providers to work with students in our schools.
Anything else? Then we will go ahead and take the vote.
Okay. Ms. Gorst?
Yes.
Ms. Tremelli?
Yes.
Mr. Yekitis?
Yes,
Mrs. Bohan?
Yes.
Dr. Schulman?
Yes.
Mrs. Steiner?
Yes.
And next on our agenda is approval of student travel to Orlando, Florida for the boys basketball holiday tournament. Now, this would be during the Christmas break in December of 2024, so a year away. But if it's approved, then they have time to plan and do fundraising, et cetera, and set up all the details for the trip. So, what is your desire
I
regarding?
will move to approve, but I will have a question about where the funding has come from later when we get to discussion.
Okay,
Second.
So,
thank you. Okay, now your question is about funding, and I,
is students raising the money for this? Is that right?
And
Or-
families.
Or families, individuals? It's
Yeah.
not coming out of an athletic budget or anything like
No,
that per se?
correct, correct. This is separate outside fundraising that occurred. We're happy to see that. I would like to note that Coach Fisher exited early the Gene Delisio Radio Coaches Program recording this evening to be here just in case there were questions. So Coach Fisher, I appreciate your being here to address questions, but I don't know that there's much more to add other than travel of this nature is completely outside fundraised. This is not district dollars that pay for a trip of this nature.
Correct. So most of our funds, 90 to 95% of our funds from the boys basketball that comes to us is through our concessions. The other 5 to 10% would be from.
Would you like to sit down? and
the
listen?
cameras are behind you,
Oh,
so they're
sure.
motioning
And also-
to
Forgive me, I'm not sure the procedure here. Thank you.
get you out of the,
Sure.
so your back isn't
Thank you.
in front of the camera. Thank you.
I gotta turn off my coaching voice now. So we've already put down a substantial deposit on this already, and that came from our boys basketball fund. 90 to 95% of our money that comes into us is through our concessions. The other 5 to 10% would be from individual donations, the Tiger fundraising cards that we have every fall. For this particular trip, we would have to look at other ways of raising that money. We do have a very healthy fund right now, but in a trip that's this substantial and costs this much, we don't want to necessarily drain our account. We still have to have operating costs and things like that. So the plan would be, once we need to give our full attention to our season currently. So once that is completed, hopefully in late March, we would then set the wheels in motion to have various fundraising efforts.
And I see in the application that you have experience doing this in other districts where you've done it.
Not necessarily, it's been in this district, it was locations that we take our team
Other
to.
locations.
Yeah, so,
Okay, so,
this December, we're going down to Concordia University in Mequon for an overnight stay because we've got a game overnight stay and then a game the next day, so.
so you're adding a new experience. for
Yes,
that.
yeah, like a teacher and a coach, you're always looking for ways to improve your skill and methods and improve your program. I'm just looking for some way that we can maybe take our program to the next level. I'm not even sure what that level looks like. But I think this would be a very enjoyable experience for our student athletes.
And the only reason I brought up the question, Coach, is that That's a question that I do get asked sometimes in public when we have some of these items, like
Sure.
the video ports, for example, is another example of that. Those are, the 99% of that is gonna be spent through individual donations. There may be some cost for like electrical hookup or something with the district. And in your case, just trying to make it known that when a lot of these clubs and organizations come before us, it's through the hard work of these coaches, players, organizations, families, that they come forth with some of these great travel opportunities. They're not out of the, I'd say, athletic budget per se, and it's not something that the district per se is paying for unless there would be something
Right.
exceptional along the way.
And I'm not even sure what our final total amount is going to be because there's a lot of variables at play here. You know, I don't know how many kids we're gonna take yet because we gotta go through another season. We gotta see who comes back next year. Unfortunately, we do have to cut some athletes, which is one of the worst days of my year. There's the cost of flights that you can't book until maybe 6 months away. You know, there's, with the tournament that we're going to, the way the calendar's set up, we would play Friday, Saturday. The event hosts nothing on Sundays, so we would have to stay an extra day to play on Monday. And then the thought is, do we try to book flights Monday night? Or do we stay that extra night and fly out Tuesday morning, which would add some cost to it? Plus that Tuesday would be December 31st, which is New Year's Eve, and I don't know if the cost of flights go up on a New Year's Eve semi-holiday. I don't know how much it's gonna cost us, but we're gonna make sure that we raise enough. I'm not a fan of asking people for money without giving or trying to give them something in return. So we've had some ideas like steak fries and breakfast and something on Mother's Day. We've got ideas that we're thinking about, but I know there's very generous people in this community, and I know that we have a lot of community support.
So I have a question. So it sounds to me like this is not going to be a direct ask to students' parents and then
No.
students who can't
So-
afford. It seems like it's more of it's a group effort, so there's not
Correct.
going to be that distinction or effort that required for a student whose family maybe can't afford to pay for
Correct,
this.
and
And
that's
I
another-
really want to say I love that model,
Yeah.
and I wish all of our trips were that way.
That's
So
another
we can
variable
keep
at
it-
play here is
Yeah.
who would be willing to go on this trip.
Yeah.
We're not entirely sure what that would look like either. We also are aware that some student athletes would be able to raise more money than others, so we're talking about maybe just throwing it all in one big pool
I think that's wonderful.
rather than
Yeah.
each individual student raising their
And
enough
if a
money.
family of their own accord, can
Wants to
privately
come
make a
with us.
donation that is not going to be.
Yes, and then if a family,
Yeah.
parents want to come with us, that would be on their own dime.
Mhm.
Right? We would pay for our players and our coaches.
So what we're doing here is just setting the groundwork for Chris and his people, coaches, players, parents, people from the community, whatever. We're giving approval to go ahead and complete the fundraising and whatever else that he wants, just so that he doesn't go ahead and start doing all this and all of a sudden the board goes a couple months down the road, wait a minute. So that's what we're doing here by this action item, I assume.
Correct, and it's for our boys varsity basketball team. So,
Correct.
That's a great opportunity.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
okay, then we will go ahead and take the vote.
Okay. Ms. Tremelli,
Yes.
Mr. Yekitis,
Yes.
Mrs. Bohan,
Yes,
Dr. Schulman,
Yes.
Mrs. Steiner,
Yes.
Ms. Gorst.
Yes.
and next we have approval of student travel to Milwaukee for the Regional Ocean Bowl. And this is February 9th and 10th, so they leave, I guess, a half day on Friday, and then they come back on Saturday. And what is your desire regarding approval of this trip?
Move to approve. This is a program that we have at the high school level, maybe junior high, people involved as well, that has been extremely successful regionally and nationally, and really puts our school out there as a great school.
Dean McFarland and Paul Herber has been doing this for
Yep.
many years.
They do a great job.
He's the expert.
And I will say that the fact that in 2000, I think it was 2012, the Marshfield Ocean Bowl team came in #1 in the country was a real draw for us as West Coasters to say, wow, they must be doing something right because this is a landlocked, there's no ocean around. That these kids are really motivated. That was that got us thinking about moving here. So that was a really nice draw.
So I move to approve.
I'll second it. Okay.
Hey, Dr. Schulman got
Dr.
you.
Schulman beat you.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Just a question on funding. How's this going to be funded?
Okay, so that one, I think in the application, they have some funds already. And the cost of this one is not, I think they just needed like $20 for their dinner on Friday night is the cost that is in there. So the kids just bring enough money for their dinner. I'm sure they could pack something if they prefer.
When it says the funds are budgeted, is this
There's
something
some
that's?
transportation is covered by the district.
Okay. And the state, the hotel?
That's a combination of fundraise. They have donations that come in to support this program to offset the difference.
So they have a fund within the district that they use that has been supplied through those fundraisers, et cetera.
Okay.
They're not having to do any fundraising specifically for this trip.
Correct.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. It's
So
just the cost of the dinner.
Yeah,
the
this
district
is a lower.
the district is not paying for this. They are,
Well, the transportation.
except for the transportation.
Correct. Any other questions? And the transportation is to Milwaukee. Anything else? Okay, we will go ahead and take roll.
Mr. Yekitis?
Yes.
Mrs. Bohan?
Yes.
Dr. Schulman?
Yes.
Mrs. Steiner?
Yes.
Ms. Gorst?
Yes.
Ms. Tremelli?
Yes.
Okay, I think that concludes our agenda for the evening. I would entertain a motion to adjourn, and before I do that, just have a wonderful Christmas, everyone, and thank you for your time tonight.
Motion Tara?
Motion to adjourn.
Tara made a motion. I need a
Okay.
second.
Oh, I'll second.
Okay.
Okay, there we go, and you can go ahead and
Take the roll. Okay, Mrs. Bohan?
Say
Yes.
aye.
Dr. Schulman?
Yes.
Mrs. Steiner?
Yes.
Ms. Gorst?
Yes.
Ms. Tremelli?
Yes.
Mr. Yekitis?
No.
You're
Yes.
outnumbered.
Yes, of
Hey,
course.
Coach, I think he wants to call you up for some more questions.